Hello and welcome to another one of my book reviews. And today I want to talk to you about Camera Obscura, book number 2 of the Bookman Histories by Lavie Tidhar. I did read the Bookman, did a review for that just a few days ago. If you haven't read that one, that's fine, because Camera Obscura is kind of its own standalone novel. It seems that all 3 books in this trilogy are kind of standalone. There are some references, like passing references to the first novel, The Bookman, where Orphan is mentioned, Mycroft Holmes, Irina Adler are mentioned, but they're not integral to the plot for Camera Obscura, whereas The Bookman was a big old grand adventure following Orphan through the steampunk world. Camera Obscura kind of jumps genres a little bit. It starts off as like a murder mystery, it turns into a crime thriller. In the middle, there's just couple chapters are just body horror, which I was not expecting tonally. And then it kind of turns into more of the classic adventure in like the last half, eventually bringing it to the World's Fair in Chicago. Anyways, just like the first one, you could file it under Steampunk, Alternate History, Reptilian Royalty, Murder Most Foul, and the World's Fair. Well, I mean, the last 2 are not in the first one, but they're in this one. Anyways, Camera Obscura, it takes place in the Bookman Histories world, which is it's called alternate history, but it's a strange steampunk world where a lot of people have names of literary characters. Like these characters are jumping out of the books. Like the main character, the first one was an orphan named Orphan. The main character of Camera Obscura is Milady de Winter, which is a reference to the Three Musketeers. However, it's kind of a face value reference because Milady de Winter is not the same character from Dumas's novels. Instead, she is an African warrior, or was an African warrior, who eventually joined P.T. Barnum's circus and eventually kind of married into royalty, which got her a current title. So the Bookman followed one plot line. It followed Orphan the entire journey. Camera Obscura follows 2 plot lines. There is Milady de Winter, who works for the Quiet Council in France. So the Bookman primarily took place in England. I mean, it was an adventure novel, so there was a lot of adventure, including going to some islands, Caliban's Island. Camera Obscura primarily takes place in France, over the English Channel there, whereas the Lizardine Empire is ruling England. Automatons pretty much rule France, and Milady de Winter works for the Quiet Council, who is like a hush-hush group that kind of takes care of mysterious tasks. And she is tasked with solving a locked door mystery, a murder in the Rue Morgue, which is kind of another reference to Poe. I say another, I haven't actually mentioned any of the references to Poe, but there's lots of references to Poe. They even mention, hey, I wonder if an orangutan did this, which is a reference to the actual story, Murder in the Rue Morgue. But like I said, face value references. You get a lot of face value references throughout here. You have Marquis de Sade in this. You have Victor Frankenstein in this. You have Quasimodo in this, but they might have little tidbits of their actual character. Victor Frankenstein, for example, he's just called Victor, is trying to work on some crazy scientist stuff, much like an actual mad scientist, even though in the novel, Victor Frankenstein wasn't really a mad scientist per se. He was just, a scientist, or natural philosopher as he would be in that time. But anyways, it's a fun adventure. I will say that Milady de Winter, the protagonist, I keep saying protagonist, like I said, there's 2 storylines. The other one is very small chapters throughout. So you get multiple chapters of Milady de Winter, but then you have kind of between each part of the novel, little chapters that follow Kai, who is an Asian lad who is in control of an emerald Buddha statue, like an emerald, it's like a lizard Buddha. Emerald statue that is giving him strange visions. Kind of gave me like a Jade City feel, although the Jade in there turns into a superhero. Not so much in this one, although I suppose it does have some very strange effects. Anyways, Milady de Winter is trying to solve a murder, which turns into a manhunt, turns into trying to hunt down a killer. Like I said, there's a little chapter in the middle of body horror, which was shockingly out of place, but I loved it. And then it turns into an adventure where she's kind of tracking down this killer across the sea, where she actually winds up in Vespuccia, which is this alternate America. But anyways, where she winds up in the World Fair. Milady de Winter, a much better protagonist than Orphan. Orphan was a very reactive protagonist. He was just kind of there for the ride so that he could react to everything going on around him. Milady de Winter is a shoot first, ask questions later type of gal. And you're going to see a lot of that action in here. Almost to a point where you're like, I guess the Quiet Council isn't really a police force. And that's good because she would be a terrible cop. But anyways, it was a hell of a read. My only issue with it was that the final act in the Chicago World Fair was just kind of a letdown. I mean, it's a very short section, like 50 pages in the back here. It's like, you're there and then it's done. The novel just sort of ends. You have your resolution very quickly, and then it's like, okay, bye. Thanks for stopping in. And that was a little bit of a downer. Because I think, 90% of this novel was really, really good. It was just that final 10% that was disappointing. Another thing that I enjoyed about Camera Obscura is that, the Bookman, I enjoyed the literary references, and it was jam-packed with them. But it was jam-packed to the point where it kind of detracted from the story. The references aren't as heavy in Camera Obscura. They're still there. You're still going to run into your Buffalo Bill out in the West. You're still going to run into all your historical figures and your literary figures all wrapped into one. But it's not as overbearing as it was in the Bookman, which I think is a nice balance, because then you can still have your strong plot, your strong story, with a gun-toting protagonist who has no problem, knocking heads together, while still maintaining your literary references. Like I said, all in all, very fun read. This book is over 10 years old. I happen to have purchased this copy through PS Publishing, believe it or not. PS Publishing has done a lot of special editions of Lavie Tidhar. This is not a special edition. This is just a trade edition. As far as I'm aware, they have not done a special edition of the Bookman Histories. I happen to just buy this through Pete's Bookstore. Like, he sells secondhand books through the Pete's Bookstore through PS Publishing. And I picked it up through there. And then I was like, hey, I realized online it was a second book. And then I went back and bought the first book thinking I need to read that first. But like I said, you don't really have to. So if you didn't read the Bookman and you just want to read Camera Obscura, go for it. I honestly think they're both worth a read. And they were both good enough reads that I am going to continue on and read The Great Game, which is the third and final book in the trilogy. I'm presuming that one doesn't really connect either. Maybe it does. Maybe it ties the two books together. I don't know. If you want to stick around and check out my review for that, please consider liking and subscribing. I have at least one book review a week. I've been doing 2 the last few weeks. And I got plenty of unboxing videos in between those to hold you over. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you around next time.